another video on the channel. So in this video, we're going to solve few JavaScript related questions that are for the interviews. And in the second part of the video, we're going to solve a UI question that is based on React.js. So if you find this interesting, please do the like button and do subscribe for more such content. So let's get started. So initially, let's go on solving the JavaScript related questions. So I'm just going to paste in my first question over here. So this is the first question. You can actually go through it. Alright, so the question goes like, implement a function that takes one or more values and returns a function that cycles through those values each time it is called. Okay, so that's the question, and these are your test cases or your examples. So here the first one is const hello function is going to be equals to the cycle function, and this function is going to take in values. So it can take one or more values as mentioned in the question, and whenever I call the hello function, okay, we need to start showing the values, that is one by one. So as you can see over here in the first example, this cycle function is going to take in only taking in only one value. So that's the reason how many ever number of times you call your hello function, we are going to show morning itself in the log. Okay, so let's understand the second one. You would understand the question even more better. So the second one goes like, const on of function is going to be equals to cycle, and this in turn is going to take in two values, that is on and off. So again, when I call your on off function, initially as you can see we have two values over here. So first time we're going to show the first value which says on, and again when I call your on off function, we're going to show off because we have the second value also present inside of your values list or values array. So as you can see, we are logging off over here. So again, let's say I'm going to call my on off function for the third time. So since on is also called, off is also called, the next step again we need to cycle back and then we need to call on. We need to show on onto the console. That's the basic understanding of this. So basically we're going to return a function that is within your cycle, and we need to start showing each value that is inside of your values list whenever that particular return function is called, right? So now you can actually pause for a couple of minutes and then you can think about how exactly we're going to start solving this problem, or how exactly we're going to approach the problem to solve it. Alright, so let's again start off by understanding what exactly is the goal of the function. So basically our goal is to write a function that is cycle, that is going to take in one or more values and it returns another function, and when that particular function is called, that is your return function is called, it should return a value from the input list in a cyclic manner, just as we have gone through the examples over here. And after your last value is returned, let's say for example of, again we need to cycle back to the first one and then show the first value. So let's head back to our Google Docs and then let's understand how exactly we're going to solve this problem. So here I'm just going to say cyclic functions or cyclic function, and here let's check what we're going to have. Okay, so we're going to have basically your main function, that is, let's say function cycle. So this in turn is going to have in all of your values that can be either one or even more values as well. So as the question says, this particular cycle is going to return a function. So here I'm going to say return function, and when this particular function is called, we need to start showing all of the values that is starting off from the first value in the values list. All right, so here I'm going to say, initially we would store all of the list of the values in an array. So we're going to say we would store the list of values in an array. And the second thing we need to keep in mind is we need access to a counter variable, let's say to keep track of which value to return next, right? So I'm going to say we need a counter variable to keep track of the value. And apart from that, the next thing is each time your return function is called, we'll return that particular current value, and then the next step is we also need to increment the counter as well. So let's say for example we have two values over here, let's say on and then off. Okay, so let's say when the return function is called for the first time, we need to show on, and when it's called the next time, we should have push the counter or move the counter from on to off. Initially our counter would be pointing to on. let's say on is at 0, that is index 0, and this is at index 1. So let's say counter is initially 0, and once again we call the function return function, we need to push the index to be 1, or we need to make the index to be 1, such that we need to access this particular of value and then return that value. Okay, so that's the basic understanding of step 3. So we will, so here I'm going to say we will return the current value and update the counter. Once when your counter reaches the ending point, that is off, again if we would move the counter, we would obviously go out of bounds, and we would get basically an error saying that that particular index cannot be accessed because we only have 2 places in the array, right? So as you can see over here, the next step is once the counter reaches the end of the array, we need to push back the counter to 1, or we need to reset the counter to 0, not 1, sorry, we need to reset the counter to be 0. So that's the fourth point. So here I'm going to say once counter reaches end, just say reset to 0. Okay, so based on all of these 4 points, we're going to start writing a function, that is your cycle function. Let's come back to the code over here. I've just created a basic cycle.js. So here I'm going to say function cycle. This in turn is going to take in all of your values. I'm just going to spread all of the values. And here, let me just initialize my index. This is basically your counter itself. I'm going to say index is going to be equals to 0. And here, as you can see in the question, this particular cycle function returns a function. Okay, so here I'm going to say return function. So here the first step is we need access to the first value inside of your values list. Okay, first let's store that, and then let's increment the counter. So to access that, I'm going to say const value is going to be equals to access the values array, and it's going to be of the index. So index value is 0. So values of 0 would give you the first value inside of your values list, right? So this is to get the current value based on the index. So the next step is we need to increment your counter. So for that, I'm going to say index is going to be equals to index plus 1 modulus values.length. So here you might ask why you're using this method, that is this statement, and why not index equals to just index plus 1. Okay, so let's understand in the later part of the video, that is in just a bit, why I used this method and why not just index equals to index plus 1. Both of them does the same thing essentially, that is push the index by 1 position forward. Alright, so for now I'm just going to remove this. Let's understand further why exactly we did this in the coming part. So yeah, after we have incremented the counter or the index, the next step is we need to return this particular current value. Okay, so I'm going to say return value, that is this particular value. Alright, so now let's try to log the function. So this was your function, that's pretty much it. So let's try to call this. So I'm going to say const hello is going to be equals to cycle, and let's say I'm going to pass in the values over here. Let's say morning, and I'm just going to say console.log of hello. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I'm just going to call this a couple of times. So since we have only one value present, it should cycle back to the same value, and we need to be seeing morning itself into the console. So here I'm just going to say node cycle.js. So there you go, morning and then morning. It's working absolutely fine. So let's go and check the next one. That is your next test case. I'm going to say on and off. Copy that and then paste it over here. I'm going to call this 4 times, or let's say 3 times. Console.log hello. Save. Let's try to run it again. So there you go. It initially went to on. It again went to off. And since off was completed, again I called it for the 3rd time. It went on to the first input again, which is on, and it logged onto the console. So as you can see, this is working absolutely fine, right? So now let's actually understand how exactly this worked. So let's actually take in this example, which is a good example to do the dry run. Let's come back over here to our docs, and here initially let's understand the dry run. After we do this, we would understand why exactly I have written this one, that is index equals to index plus 1 modulus values dot length. Okay, so here I'm going to say initially I'm just going to copy down the input, that is this one. Okay, I don't think we would get in this format. Let's come back to the previous state. So I'm going to say const on off is going to be equals to cycle of two things, that is on and then off. Okay, so yeah, as and when you call the on off function, we need to return on, off, and then on. You've already seen that. So let's understand how exactly the call goes. So I'm just going to say first call to on off. Okay, so here the values initially it would be an array that is containing on as well as containing off, because these are the two things passed on to the cycle function, as you can see over here. So this is your values array, and we already have initialized our index to 0. You might already know that over here. Okay, so index is going to be equals to index plus 1 modulus values dot length. So this in turn is going to be equals to, let's say, 0 plus 1 modulus 2, and then yeah, so this should be basically equals to your 1 modulus 2, that is basically 1 itself. So yeah, as you can see, index was initially 0. By applying that index equals to index plus 1, this one, we just push the index to be equals to 1. So our index became 1, and we returned the value, that is whatever was present over here, which was the first input, that is on. Okay, so once I logged hello, that is this particular function, as you can see, we have a return over here. So this was returned, that is on was returned onto the console. That's the reason you're able to see on. All right, so that was your first call. So let's understand the second call over here. So I'm going to say second call to on off. So here basically your values is again same itself, that is on and off. So I'm just going to write it as is over here, and your index is now not 0. Index is going to be equals to 1. Okay, again it would access the value, that is values of 1, that is off, and we again push the index. So while pushing the index, as of now index is going to be equals to 1. So if I use normal pushing, that is index equals to index plus 1, it would become 2. So that would give us an error. So according to our condition, it's going to be equals to index plus 1 modulus values dot length. So it's going to be equals to 1 plus 1 modulus 2, that is 2 mod 2. So that value is going to be equals to your 0. So I'm going to say 2 mod 2 is going to be equals to 0, and this is the value at that particular point of time. And after calculating the index, we do have a return, as you can see. So that particular value is returned, that is off is returned, and now your index value is again back to 0, right? So here I'm going to say index value is back to 0. Again your final call is present, that is third call to your on off function. So here basically again we are going to have your same array, that is values array, right? So here if you remember, at this point of time index is 0, so it should have the value as on. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much it. So once when I again call the index statement, this would increment the index from 0 to 1. So at this point of time index would again be equals to 1, and we have that return value, so on would be returned. Okay, so as you can see, our first output on, second output off, third output on. So the same thing we got over here as well, on, off, and then on. Yeah, so this is working absolutely fine. So now let's understand why exactly we use this one and not index equals to index plus 1, right? So let's come back over here. So let's say suppose we have 3 elements inside of an array. Let's say A, B, and then C. Okay, and let's say if the index, and let's say if your index is 0, so we would be able to access the first one, which is A, and let's say after that we increment the index to 1, we would access B. This is A, index equals to 1, this is going to be equals to B, and then when we increment it to 2, index is going to be equals to 2. here we could access C because it's present at the second position. I mean, based on the indexing part, there is array of 2. Okay, so the next index would give us, index is going to be equals to 3. Okay, so basically this is out of bounds because we only have 3 elements and we only have indexing up to 2, because there is no array of 3 over here, right? Because we only have 3 elements present. So that's the reason we are going to use this method, that is index equals to index plus 1 modulus values dot length. So by using that, basically once when we reach the end position of the values list or values item, we would again come back to the 0th position, and that's what we actually want, right? We need to cycle back to the initial input and then show that particular value. So that's the reason we are going to use index equals to index plus 1 modulus your total array dot length. So basically in this particular question we have the concept that is closures, that is the concept which is being used. So in our solution, basically our inner function has access to the variables from the outer function, that is index and your values as well, which allows you to retain the state between your different function calls. So that's the basic concept of closures involved in this particular question. So now let's move on to the next question. So I'm just going to paste in the question over here again in the questions.txt file. So let me just paste it over here. Yeah, so this is your next question. It is again similar to the first one, so you can actually solve it on your own. So let's understand the question. Yeah, so the question goes like this. Let's say second over here. Alright, so we need to create a function multicycle that takes multiple arrays and returns a function that cycles through the values one array at a time. Okay, so each time the return function is called, it should return the next value in the current active array. Okay, and when the current active array completes its cycle, we need to move to the next array. After cycling through all of your arrays that are present, then again it should restart from the first array. So as you can see, this particular question is super similar to the previous question, right? So this is just an extended version of this, just that over here we are passing normal strings, here we are passing an array of different kind of values, and we need to again start calling each item inside of the array, starting from the first array to the last array. And once again we move to the last array, we need to cycle back to the first array and then start showing all of the elements. So let's say again over here, I'm going to call my iterator function a bunch of times. So as you can see, this is my first array which contains a comma b. So we need to start showing each elements one by one. So we're going to have a, we're going to have b. So this array is complete. Again, when I call the function, we need to move to the next array, show all of its elements based on how many ever number of times the iterator is called. So as you can see, 1, 2 and then 3. So furthermore, this array is complete, second array is complete. We move on to the next one which contains x and then y. So we're going to show x and y. So until this we have done one round. Again they have called the iterator function for 3 more times. So since this particular array is complete, we need to loop back to the first array, then start showing all of the elements from the first array, that is again a and then b. So again they have called it for the final time. So since again this is complete, move on to the second array, show the first element. So I hope you understood this particular question. That is what needs to be done. It is pretty much similar to the first question. Okay, so let's basically head back to our Google Docs and then let's understand how exactly we're going to solve this. So let's come back over here. So let's say multi-cycle. Yeah, so let's try to break down this problem. So let's say we have the example given, that is this one, that is let's say multi-cycle of an array that is initially your a and then b. Then furthermore we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, so here we're going to have 3 arrays, that is your a comma b, and we're going to have your 1, 2, 3, and furthermore we're going to have your x and then y. So here basically we're going to create an iterator function that keeps track of the current position. So here if you would just figure it out, we would need access to 2 indexes, not 1. So the first index would be basically your array index that keeps track of which current array is active, that is, which array are we currently cycling through. The second one is again similar to the previous question, that is your element index, that keeps track of which element inside that particular array is being accessed, right? So here I'm going to say first we need two indexes, that is your array index. So this would basically keep track of which array are we currently cycling through. And the second one is similar to the previous question, as I said, that is basically your element index. So this basically keeps track of which element inside that array is being accessed. Okay, so basically each time when that iterator function is called, we need to return the next element in the current array. If the end of the array is reached, that is, let's say we are at this particular position B, and once we have returned B, we have reached the end of this particular array. So once we have reached this, we need to move to the next array, and then we need to set the element index to again 0. Okay, so if all arrays are completed, restart from the first array. So these are another 2 points to keep in mind. So here I'm going to say if the or before this we're going to say each time your function is called, you're going to return the next element in your current array, and let's say if the end array is reached, if your end of array is reached, here we're going to say move to the next array. Alright, else if all the arrays are completed, if all arrays are completed, in this case we need to restart from the first array. That's what the problem statement says. So here I'm going to say restart from the first array. So yes, according to all of these points, we're going to start writing our function. Let's understand again what exactly we've written. So this is your basic function, that is multicycle, which takes in a bunch of arrays, and we need to keep track of two things. That is your array index, that keeps track of which array are we currently processing, either this, or the third one. And we also do need access to your array index to keep track of which element in that particular array is being accessed, either A or B or 1, 2, 3 or something like that. Okay, and each time your function is called, we need to return the next element in the current array that we are processing. And once the current array is completely being processed, is done, let's say 1, 2, 3 is completely processed, the next one is xy. We're going to move to xy. Once xy is completely processed, once it's logged onto the console, again once when we call the iterator function, we need to loop back and then we need to point it to this particular array. So let's implement that. That's how we're going to work on this. So here I'm just going to say new function or new file, multicycle.js. Okay, so here let me just write the function, that is function multicycle. This in turn is going to take in all of your arrays. I'm just going to spread them over here. So here first step is, similarly we're going to write the code as we have written over here. In the previous question, initially we have initialized index. Here also it's going to be super similar. I'm going to say let array index is going to be equals to 0. Similarly, I'm going to say let element index is also going to be equals to 0. So this is basically for tracking which array is active, that is which array is being currently processed, and this is for tracking the value inside that array. Here of course this would return a function again according to the question. I'm going to say return function. So here the first step is we need to initialize our current array, right? So to initialize the current array, it is going to be arrays of 0, right? So 0 in the sense arrays of array index. So here I'm going to say const my current array is going to be equals to initialize your arrays, that is coming from the parameter and pass in the first array as we have already initialized our array index, pass in that value over here. So array index. All right, the next step is initialize the first value inside of this particular array. So let's say we have the first value as, so let's say this is the first array, that is a comma b. We need to first store the value that is a. So to access that, it's going to be your current array of element index, right? That's how we access it. So here I'm going to say const value is going to be equals to current array of element index. Yeah, so this part is done. So now the next step is we're going to say element index plus plus. So here we are trying to do this because once when we reach the end of the array, we need not come back to the initial position of the same array. We need to move to the next array in the list. So that's the reason I'm writing element index plus plus. Okay, so this would basically move to the next element. All right, so now here we're going to write the condition, that is if at all we reach the end of the current array, switch to the next array. So here the condition is simple. I'm going to say if my element index is greater than or equals to your current array dot length, then that means we would have reached the end position, right? So let's write that correctly, length. So this is the case, we need to reset to the first element of your next array. So again your element index is going to be equals to 0, right? And after this I'm going to say array index is going to be equals to, here we are going to write in the same condition that we have written over here, because this is what we are cycling, that is array. Previously we were cycling through the list, that is basically a single array, right? Here we are cycling through multiple arrays. So that's the reason here we're going to write that condition, that is array index is going to be equals to array index plus 1 modulus of your arrays dot length. So this would move to the next array into the list. Okay, so that's pretty much it about the condition. After this is done, automatically we just need to return the value that would be logged onto your console. So let's format once and let's save the file. Let's try to just copy the same thing down. So let's make sure our function name is same, multicycle. Yeah, that's correct. Let's try to save the file and let's try to run the function. So I'm just going to say terminal, new terminal. I'm just going to say node multicycle .js. So there you go. Let's verify our output. So over here, as you can see, AB 1 2 3. After that XY is processed, then AB and then 1. So there you go, it's working absolutely fine. So we have executed this particular function properly fine. So let's understand how exactly this works over here. So let's say initially array index is going to be equals to 0. So it would be pointing to this particular array, and your element index is also 0. So as you can see, const value is going to be equals to current array of element index, right? So current value of element index would basically give you a, that's your first value, and after that it is going to check the condition, that is it's going to first of all increment, that is element index plus plus. So here element index would be equals to 1. So here we're going to check if 1 is greater than current array dot length. Current array is currently 2, that is the length of it. So 1 is greater than 2, that is false. So here we would actually come back out of this loop and we would return the value which was a. So as you can see, a was logged onto the console. And again, basically when we call the iterator function for the second time, your array is going to be same, that is a comma b itself, and your element index would be equals to 1. So here it should store the value, okay, and element index is going to be equals to 2. Now after incrementing it, it's going to check the condition, that is if 2 is greater than or equal to 2, which is true. So it would again set the element index to be 0 and it would move the array index 1 position forward. So now array index is 0. By applying this condition, it would have become 1. And after that, it would just say return value. So at this particular point of time, value is equals to b. So we have returned b. So now again, when we call for the iterator function, your array index is going to be equals to 1. So this time we would process the second array, right? So similarly over here, your element indexing starts from 0. So we're going to say 1, 2, and then 3. That is how many ever number of times you call your iterator function. Once this is processed, your array index is going to be equals to 2. So again, similarly, your element index becomes 1. So you're going to start, showing x, y. Once this is processed, your array index is currently 2. Again, when your iterator function is called, we would loop back to this particular array by this particular condition, that is array index is going to be equals to array index plus 1 modulus arrays dot length. So this would basically give you 2 plus 1 modulus 3, that is 3 modulus 3, that is 0. So array indexing, so array index would become equals to 0 over here. So that's the reason again we come back and process a comma b. So that's how this works. So you can actually understand the same thing with the help of this call as well. So you can actually go through how exactly we did the call, and then you can write down the same dry run for this particular second function as well, that is multi-cycle. So hope you understood this question. So yes, I think that's it about these two questions. So initially we learned about the first question, that is where we had to implement a cycle function that had an inner function being returned, which once when called we need to start writing the inputs that is going to contain in the cycle function one by one. So we need to cycle back as well based on how many ever values are present inside of your values list or values item in the cycle function. So similarly, we also went through the second function as well, which is multi-cycle, that took multiple arrays as input, and we had to go through each array and then show in each item one at a time. And once when we reach the end part of the array, we need to cycle back to the first array and then show all of its elements. So hope you found this questions interesting and useful. So now let's move on to the next part, that is to code a UI question, or basically we would be given a problem statement and we should be able to solve that using React.js. So the next question that we'll be solving will be based on React.js. So I'll just be showing the screenshot. So based on that, you would understand what exactly we would need to build, right? So let's look into the screenshot. So basically this is your screenshot. So this contains, let's say, 3 boxes, that is with drop downs, and we have an input field which says this is a toast message, and below that we have a range kind of design that is going to show your duration, and we have a show toast button. Okay, so based on whatever value is selected over here, and once the user presses on show toast and whatever duration was selected before pressing on show toast, that we need to show it onto the screen, right? So let's say currently over here we have top right being shown and the success type is being selected. So as you can see, we are going to show the toast towards the top right part. So this is basically a question of showing a toast message based on whatever type or whatever item is selected over here in the drop down, and the user can also change the text input over here. So by default it says this is a toast message. We can change the message over here, and accordingly we need to display that particular message onto the toast over here. And we have 3 types over here. One is success, one is error, and one is normal. Okay, and over here we have top and then bottom. Here we have right and then left. These are the 2 options for the second one. These are the 2 options for the first one. These are the 3 options for the third one, that is success, error, and then normal. And the user can change in the text input as and when they want, and based on that we need to show that particular text input within your toast box. And this is your duration. So based on how many ever number of seconds was selected and they press on show toast, that many number of seconds it should be shown onto the screen. And the user can also press on the X button which is present over here, and automatically the toast should be closed at that particular point of time. So this is what we're going to build up. So you can actually pause for a couple of minutes and then you can actually think about how exactly you're going to solve this question. So this is basically related to the style, that is the design part, and less implementation. So you should be knowing the CSS part well, that is your position of absolute, position of fixed, all these things. So let's get started. So I've just created a basic demo app over here, that is over here. So I've just rendered a p tag, and then I've just run my app. I'll just show you what exactly is being rendered. So as you can see, it is just a complete hello being rendered at the center part of the screen because of the styles that I've given. That is, these are the required styles, that is for the root. Okay, so now let's get started with the implementation part. So initially let's look into the design, that is to design all of these text boxes or your drop downs, as well as your text input, as well as this range indicator and your show toast button. So initially within the div, I'm going to use my label tag. So this in turn is going to have your select, that would give you a drop down. So I'm going to make use of my select tag, This in turn is going to have your option. So I'm going to say option 1. So this option is going to say top, and this is going to say option 2. This is going to say bottom. And for your select, we're going to say value is going to be equals to option, or instead of that I'm going to say top value. I think we need to define this in just a bit, and we're also going to have the on change. Let's also define the state to hold the value for this particular drop down. So here I'm going to say const top value comma set top value is going to be equals to use state, and initially it would be pointing to top. Import your use state from React. Alright, so your value is going to be top value, and we're also going to have on change such that if we change the value we need to set that value. So I'm going to say on change, taking the event, and here I'm going to say set your top value to be of e dot target dot value. Let's format once, and for the option let's provide in the value. So I'm going to say value is going to be top, and the same thing over here as well, value is going to be bottom. Let's try to save the file, and there you go. Initially top is selected, and once I press on that we have the second option, that is bottom. I think the spelling is wrong. Yeah, that's right. Let's save the file. So yeah, below this I'm gonna have my second label being shown. I'm just gonna copy this down one more time. Yeah, so this is gonna say left and right. So I'm gonna say left and then right. So for this again we need another state to hold which value is currently selected. So for that here I'm gonna say const, let's say side value comma set side value is going to be equals to use state, and let's say initially it would be pointing to right. So here I'm going to say right. So let's scroll down and let's change the value over here. So value is going to be here side value, and on change is going to be set side value to be of e dot target dot value. Let's try to save the file, and yeah, below this we're going to have the next one, that is for your success, error, and then normal. Okay, so paste it over here. So this is gonna say success. Let's also change the value, we forgot that. Here it should say left, here it should say right. So here it's gonna be success, here it's gonna be normal, and one more time we need the option. So here it's gonna say error. So this value is gonna be again normal, and this is gonna say error. This is also error. Okay, let's format once. Let's initialize the state for the final one, that's going to be option. I'm going to say const option comma set option is going to be equals to use state. So initially it would be pointing to, let's say, success over here, and yeah, so let's make the change for the value. So value is going to be success, I mean not success, option, my bad. So option, and on change text or on change it's going to be set option of e dot target dot value. Let's try to save the file. Let's look into the app once. So there you go, we have top, we have right, which has two options again, left and right, and we have success. We can select between each of the options. Okay, that's looking fine. So now let's actually start styling it out. So I'm just going to give the class name for the div. I'm going to say app, and apart from that some internal styling as well. I'm going to say height of 100 vh. So height 100 vh. Apart from that, position of relative. Save the file. Let's come down to your app.css and then provide the style for your app. So currently it's showing in a row fashion. We want it to come in a column fashion. So for that I'm going to say display flex, and I'm going to say flex direction is going to be of column, and I'm going to give it a gap of 20 pixels for each of the children within the app, and apart from that some padding, let's say 40 pixels, that is some internal spacing. Apart from that, let's say a max width of 300 pixels, and margin is going to be auto, and height of 100 VH, I think that's already given. Okay, so save the file. So there you go, it has come into a column fashion, and we're able to see all of the drop downs being shown correctly. Let's come back to the app.js. Now let's start styling the next part, that is your text input as well as the range. That's going to come below your label. That is going to be over here. Let's initialize a div for that. Here I'm going to give an input that is going to be of type text. Here I'm going to say type, it's going to be text. Okay, so here let's actually initialize the state to hold the input. So I'm going to say const input comma set input is going to be equals to use state. Initially it's going to say this is a toast message. Save the file. So now let's come down to the input and let's provide in the value for this. I'm going to say value, that's going to be equals to input, and we're going to say border. I mean, we need to provide a style for that. So before that, on change, so this is going to say take an event, and here I'm going to say set input of e dot target dot value. Let's pass on some internal styling over here itself. So here I'm going to say style. So initially some padding of 10, internal spacing, border of 1 pixel solid, let's say transparent. Then apart from that, we're going to say border radius of 5. Then I'm going to say outline is going to be none. Then I'm going to say specific width of 200, and we're going to say background of this color code, that is F5 F5 F5. Save the file. Let's check out the output. So there you go, we're able to see that being shown onto the screen. Let's format once. So below that particular div, we're going to have the next part, that is for your range. So I'm going to say div over here. This in turn is going to have a span tag, which is going to say duration. So below that, we're going to have input. Here we're going to have type. This is going to be type of range. Okay, so we're going to provide the min value and the max value. Min can only be 1. It can't go below that. And maximum values, let's say 60. Let's initialize the state to hold the duration part. I'm going to say const duration or comma set duration is going to be equals to use state, and let's say by default we're going to point it to be 4, that is 4 seconds it's going to start off. And here let's scroll down to the input, and here we're going to start providing the value. Value is going to be duration, and on change we're going to say set duration to be of e.target.value. Alright, let's format once, and let's pass on the style for your div. I'm going to say style over here. Let's say display of flex, and I'm going to say align items of center. Apart from that, some margin top value, so margin top of let's say 20, and then a gap of 10. So for this span, let's provide some font size as well. So let's say style font size of 16 or 15 and then save. So there you go, we have that being shown, and we also need to show the duration as well. So that's going to come after your input, that is within another span tag. So this is going to say duration, just try to access the input value. And for this, again style font size of 15. Save the file. Alright, so yeah, we are able to see that, but it's not correctly aligned. So now the next step is, let's actually style this out because it's not looking exactly similar to this one. So for that, we need to target your select attribute, that is for each select that we have given, that is basically your select tag. So let's go directly to the app.css. Here let's pass on your select tag and let's provide some padding, 10 pixels, and apart from that, border 1 pixel solid this color, border radius of 5 pixels, and font size of 16 pixels, and I'm going to say width of 200 pixels. So let's save the file and you should be able to see the design being changed. So as you can see, now that's looking good. So yeah, even this part is done. So as and when I increase the range, even that is going to increase, that is your seconds. Okay, so yeah, we need to add in a small s over here for the duration, that is over here. I'm going to say duration in seconds. Let's add it over here. Yeah, so that's looking fine. So now let's try to save the file. So after that, we're going to have the button. So here I'm going to say below the div, so the button is going to come over here. So I'm going to say button. So this in turn is going to say show toast. Let's try to save the file. So we should be able to see that over here. As you can see, that is a show toast button. And let's define your on click over here. I'm going to say on click, it's going to be equals to handle show toast. So let's just initialize a function. So I'm going to say const handle show toast is going to be equals to a normal arrow function for now. So now first let's design this particular toast message, and based on whatever values the user is selected, then we're going to show the toast message. I'm just going to render the design for this, that is, let's say just below this, that is just below your button. So here I'm going to say div. So this div in turn is going to have your span. This in turn is going to show your input. And let's say over here we're going to have another span. This in turn is going to have your X button. That is, if at all you press on that, we need to close the input, right? Not your input, you need to close your toast box or the toast message. Here initially some style to this. I'm going to say cursor is going to be pointer. Let's try to save the file. And for the div, let's pass on the style initially. So this in turn is going to have some internal spacing, padding of 12, and then display of flex. Flex direction is going to be row. Alright, apart from flex direction, align items of center as well. Then a gap of 10 between both of these span tags. Then I'm going to say justify content of space between. Let's format once. So apart from this, I'm just going to get in my box shadow. So you can basically add this box shadow, and I'm going to say z index is going to be equals to 999. Okay, so this is the initial design. Let's format once and let's try to save the file. And let's also give the background color depending upon whatever option is selected over here, that is success or normal or error. Okay, so let's come down over here, and here I'm going to say bg color. So background color, it's going to be in the form of a condition. Initially I'm going to say if my option equals to normal, it is going to be equals to white color. Else I'm going to check if at all my option is going to be equals to success, it is gonna be in your green color, that's your background. Else your final condition, if your option is gonna be equals to error, then in that case it's gonna be in red color, else it's gonna be in transparent. So this is your condition for the background color. Let's format once. Let's try to save the file. Let's check out the output. So there you go. Since by default success was selected, we're able to see the toast message being shown, and this is your toast box, and we are able to see it in the background of green. Let's say I choose another one, normal. So as you can see, it went into the white color, and since even the background is white, we had to apply your box shadow so that we should be able to see the toast message within the box. Okay, let's say I select error over here. As you can see, it got changed into red color. So yeah, this is working absolutely fine. So now let's understand how exactly we're going to implement it. That is, once when we choose any of the options and then press on show toast. So by default, the toast message should not be seen, right? So once you should select any of the options, and then once you press on show toast, then only the toast box should be shown onto the screen. So for that, we need a variable to check if at all it is open or closed. Okay, so here I'm going to say const show toast comma set show toast is going to be equals to use state. Initially let's point it to be false. Okay, and let's also initialize the state for the countdown. So I'm going to say const countdown comma set countdown is going to be equals to use state. This would be initially set to be 0. I'm using another countdown because if at all we use the same duration, this would actually start decrementing this itself, that is the duration itself. So that's the reason I'm using another new variable, that is countdown, and then set countdown. So let's understand what exactly is going to happen once you press on the show toast button. So once you press on the show toast button, initially you're going to say set the show toast to be true. Initially it's false, we're going to say set it to be true, and we're going to set the countdown for whatever duration was selected, right? So let's do that. Here I'm going to say set show toast to be true, and here I'm going to say set your countdown to be of your duration, whatever value was selected. So by default it's 4. If at all the user doesn't apply the duration, it's going to be for 4 seconds. Let's try to save the file, and here we're going to write the condition, that is for show toast. So by default it is automatically being shown onto the screen. So here I'm going to apply the condition such that if at all my show toast is true, then only show the design. So here I'm going to say show toast and just show your div over here. Save the file. Let's format once. Okay, so there you go. By default it is not showing now, and let's say I press on show toast. We have two things that are initialized in the function, that is set show toast to be true, so it should be shown over here. And the next step is we're going to set the countdown as well for 4 seconds. Let's press on show toast. So there you go, we're able to see that design being shown on the screen. So now the next step we need to look into is basically based on whatever options are selected accordingly, that is top right, we need to show over here. If top left is selected, we need to show it over here. Similarly for bottom right, it should come over here, and bottom left over here. So currently we're able to show that, and we're able to track the countdown that is being stored inside of your countdown state. So let's first of all, implement the positioning of the toast message, and later we're going to look into the duration for which it is going to be shown onto the screen, right? So first of all, let's look into the position, that is if at all top right is selected, we need to show towards the top right part. So for this, as I told you initially, we should be looking into the styles of it. That is what will make this work. So initially I'm going to give it the position that is not given for this particular one, that is for the toast box. So I'm going to say position is going to be a fixed, that is what we're going to use, and not absolute. Okay, so here depending upon whatever value we have, that is your top value and then side value, we're going to show that. Okay, so here you would remember that we have options for the styles, that is sometimes we give position of fixed and we have the top value, we give 10, and let's say we have bottom value, we give, let's say 30. Yeah, so similarly based on these styles, we're going to apply whatever we have selected over here, that is top value and then side value. So as you can see, Top value concludes to top. This essentially is your top itself, but with a capital T. So the next one, this essentially concludes to your bottom. I mean not bottom, left or right. Left or right. Again, it is in just a capital L or capital R, right? So we're going to make use of this values, that is whatever is selected, and we're going to pass on the styling. So here I'm just going to scroll down, and here I'm going to say instead of the hard-coded values, I'm going to say top value, that can either be top or bottom. I'm going to convert it into lowercase because our styles in lowercase, that is the format for the styles. And here I'm going to say let's pass on 20 initially. Okay, similarly for the left and right, I'm going to say side value dot to lowercase. Okay, and here I'm going to say again 20. So I'm converting it into lowercase, only reason is because our state is in capital, that is the first word, and our styles won't work if I give just top of 20, right? Because our style is in all lowercase. So that's the reason I'm converting both of the values to lowercase. This also would become small l or capital R, I mean small r itself. Okay, so that's the reason we have given top value dot lowercase and then side value dot lowercase. Now let's give this a try, and hopefully we should be seeing the correct results. Let's try to save the file. Let's come back over here. Let's press on show toast. I'm going to leave everything as default. So top right is default. It should show the toast over here. Let's say show toast. So there you go. It's working absolutely fine. Initially it was here. By default it was here, and we had applied the condition that it should be only shown when the show toast is true. Currently show toast is true, and it is being shown over here according to the styles that we have given as of now. So let's say I choose a different option. Let's try to reload first. I'm going to say bottom left. It should come over here towards the left side of the page. Let's say show toast, and let's say I'm going to choose a error message show toast. So there you go, automatically it's coming towards the left side of the web page, which says this is a toast message. So that's working absolutely fine. And let's also initialize the on press on the X button such that even if the duration is not completed, we need to make that disappear off the screen, right? So here I'm going to say on press, I mean on click for React. So I'm going to say on click. Here I'm going to say set your show toast to be a false. That's the only thing. Save. So press on this, automatically it's going to close. Let's try different values. Top left, or yeah, top left. Let's pass on a normal message. Let's say I enter a different message. I'm going to say toast box, something like this, and then show toast. So there you go, that message is being shown onto the screen, and once I press on X, I'm able to cancel it as well. So yeah, that is working absolutely fine. So now let's look into the final part, that is for the duration. So the toast should be shown for only that particular duration, that is whatever was selected over here. So by default it is 4. So for that we're going to make use of a use effect, and we're going to track the counter, that is your countdown value. So we're going to show it only for 4 seconds or based on whatever the duration value was, right? Let's initialize a use effect over here. Here I'm going to say use effect, and make sure to import use effect from React. Let's remove this, and we're going to import it from React itself. Alright, so within the use effect, initially we're going to check the condition that if at all our show toast is true and countdown is not equals to null, then itself we're going to show this or implement this functionality. So I'm going to make use of the set interval. So I'm going to say const timer is going to be equals to set interval, and this is going to run for every 1 second. So 1000 milliseconds, that equals 1 second. So here I'm going to say set countdown. So every 1 second we're going to decrement the counter value, that is your countdown value. So by default it's 4, we're going to decrement it by 1, so it's going to become 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 0. So here I'm going to say set countdown of previous. Okay, here I'm going to check if my previous value, that is your countdown value, is going to be equals to 1. Then in this case, here I'm going to say clear interval of your timer, clear the timer off, and then set show toast to be of false. Okay, and I'm just going to say return null. and here we need to return the previous value, that is after you have condition it should be return previous minus 1. So let's say if it is initially 4, we need to return 3, we need to return 2, then we need to return 1. Then since 1 is true, we're going to clear off the interval and then we're going to set show toast to be false. So you might think why I have passed previous equals to 1 and not previous equals to 0, because if we pass previous equals to 0, we would run the condition one more time, that is for an extra second, and instead of showing the timer for 4 seconds, you would be showing the timer for 5 seconds. So once I have written the condition for previous equals to 1, automatically we're going to clear up the timer and then set show to be toast, and the timer becomes 0, that is your countdown becomes 0, and the 4 seconds is completed. So that's the reason I have shown previous equals to 1 and not previous equals to 0. And this is dependent upon two things, that is your show toast as well as your countdown. So I'm going to say countdown. So let's try to format once. So let's save the file. So let's give this a try. Let's check out the output once. Let's go back over here, and yeah, let's say 4 seconds is already selected, and I'm just going to press on show toast and it should show towards the top right side. And once after 4 seconds is complete, it should automatically disappear off the screen without me pressing on the X button. So let's press on show toast. So let's wait for 4 seconds. So there you go, automatically after 4 seconds it was complete. And once if I enter previous equals to 0, it would actually show for 5 seconds. Let's understand why exactly we've written previous equals to 1. So initially over here, let's say our countdown is gonna start from 4, because that's what the duration is. So each second our set countdown of previous minus 1 updates. So initially 4 is gonna be set to be 3, and your 3 is gonna be set to be 2, and your 2 is gonna be set to be 1, right? And when your previous is gonna be equals to 1, the function basically clears off the interval and hides the toast. That's what you're doing over here. Okay, when previous equals to 1, this is the implementation, that is clear interval of timer and then set show toast to be a false. So basically it never reaches 0 point, because once your previous is 1, we stop the countdown before your set countdown of 0 happens. So here let's say if we had checked for previous equals to 0, so in this case the countdown would have hit 0 point, that is the 0 value, and then still another round of interval would have been present. That would actually add for an extra second. So instead of showing for 4 seconds, we would have shown for 5 seconds. So that's the reason we are going to check for previous equals to 1 and not previous equals to 0, because in the second case, that is for the 0 case, the toast message would actually stay on the screen for an extra second before disappearing, because we would have one more level of, or one more round of another interval that's going to run. So that's the reason we are going to check for previous equals to 1. So let's clear this off. Yeah, so this is the basic understanding of this particular question. So based on whatever we have given over here, we are able to code that out over here. So let's say I select bottom right, and let's say error message. Let's say I only show it for 3 seconds. Let's say show toast over here. So it's going to show for 3 seconds and then automatically it's going to clear off of the screen. And I think I forgot to do the cleanup over here. That is after your timer. Here we need to do the cleanup. So I'm going to say return function, and here I'm just going to say clear timeout of your timer. Let's format once and then let's try to save the file. Let's give this one more final try. Let's say for 6 seconds or 7 seconds, I'm going to say bottom left or top left, and I'm going to show a success message, and I'm going to press on show toast. So there you go, this is going to be shown for about 7 seconds and automatically it's going to go off of the screen. As you can see, that's working absolutely fine. So let's say reload again, and I'm going to say bottom right for 4 seconds, and this time I'm going to cancel off the timer even before it reaches 4 seconds. Let's say show and then cancel. So as you can see, automatically before 4 seconds we were able to cancel off the timer. So that's it about this question. So hope you learned about how exactly we can implement based on the screenshot that we have given. So based on whatever options were selected and based on whatever type is selected over here, we were able to show the toast message or the toast box onto the screen. So that's it about this video. If you find this interesting, please do the like button and do subscribe for more such content. Let's see you in the next video, and then thank you for watching.